All right, my next guest is Alfred Nomad. That's right, you heard me correctly. Alfred Nomad is an independent artist emerging from Los Angeles, and let me tell you, he is cutting it up. Catching the attention of the team here at the Career Musician with his passion for activism and utilizing his music to create change for marginalized communities, Alfred Nomad has a message and he's bringing it to you. In the fall of 2020, he released an album focusing on the importance of mental health and wellness to coincide with a campaign to raise funds providing free therapy sessions for Black creatives. Originally hailing from Indianapolis, Indiana, and Atlanta, Georgia, from one nomad to another, let me introduce my brother, Alfred Nomad. Dude, Alfred Nomad, first of all, there's so much that I want to talk to you about. First of all, I want to talk about the fact that you had the tenacity to reach out to us here at the Career Musician Podcast and be like, yo, I like what you're doing. My name is Alfred Nomad. Here's all my stats. Here's all my materials. I would love to be on the show. Please check it out. You know, that alone, like I said, it takes tenacity, but it also takes a level of skill that the average young aspiring career musician does not have, or the average indie artist, that they don't always possess that. So I want to just start there. First of all, kudos to you, my brother.
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate y'all for checking out the all the information and getting back with me. It's always can be a shot in the dark depending on how you go about it. So, and how busy the other people are and all of that. So I appreciate y'all taking the time, you know. Yeah,
and I'll tell you how it happened. I have a little gym set up right outside of my studio, and I was working out one morning, and that's when your email came in. And as I'm working out, I'm always screening all of my, you know, emails and correspondence and posts and whatnot. And you came in. As soon as you popped in, I sent it to my team. I said, no, we got to have this guy on the show. Like, wow. It was instant.
That's what's up. I like to hear that, man. That means a lot.
And the reason why is because your email was so articulately designed, and your press kit and your social presence and your promo materials were on point.
Thank you. Yeah, that was with time and you know, trial and error and figuring out better ways to do stuff the next time. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of how I put it all together this time around. So,
Well, you should be. And I was going to ask you, have you done this without a manager, just by yourself?
Yeah. I thankfully, you know, I have good peers and community around me, and you know, I'm always learning. But yeah, it's no manager or anything like that. It's me for the most part. Yeah.
Well, look, everybody, all the listeners need to check out Alfred Nomad, you know, everywhere on all the socials, and you can go to alfrednomad.com. Because I do believe that you are, you know, running the head of the game here, you know, leading the pack, so to speak, with your skill set in that area.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So great. All right. So tell us, you're from Indy.
Yes. That's where I've, like you, I'm guessing, I don't know if you've lived in multiple places, but I have as well, hence the name Nomad. But yeah, that's where I consider myself from. It's from Indianapolis, Indiana.
I'm from New York originally, but I've had over 30 physical addresses. Yeah. So
dang, okay, you got me beat. That's wow. Okay, like actual addresses, not just like checking in.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm older than you, but still. So, you know, tell us about your path, man.
Yeah. Moved around from different. I originally was on the East Coast, but I lived in a few different places on the East Coast, like DC, Pennsylvania, a little bit of upstate New York, and then I moved to Indianapolis when I was adolescent, like going into teenage years, and I was there through middle and high school. That's where I really got into making music. I started out writing poetry. Like that's what I never had, when I first started doing that, I never planned to get into rapping or anything like that. But I would always write poetry that rhymed. It just made sense that way to me. And I actually had two older cousins that produced music and made music. And they were like, yo, you should rap. Like you already write this poetry and stuff. You should rap. And as soon as I wrote my first like verse, we at that point in time, we were recording on a boombox. It wasn't even like a full setup. This was years ago. and I fell in love with it. And ever since then, I did it all the time, you know, writing and recording. And and then I had like some rap groups I was in, like in high school. I had groups I was in, and we got to the point where we were like skipping school to go record and stuff like that. And then I went off to college in Atlanta. I went to Clark Atlanta University out in Georgia, and that like took it up a whole nother notch. Like then I started like performing and doing showcases and talent shows and recording in my apartment or dorm, wherever I was at, and doing it, really starting like the independent grind on another level. And just from that, you know, but always having like an independent mind state. And from there, it's been trial and error, trying things, doing things. But I've always been like really serious. And I like I said, I was in rap groups before, but then I started going solo, and then I got married. I ended up, my wife had opportunity out in California, and we ended up moving out here to LA a few years ago. And then I got in touch with some people. Like there's an organization out here called The Rattle. I always shout them out because it's just a really dope community of artists and people in tech. And they like to support artists out here. And yeah, and then I got to the point where have this new project called Everything Will Be All Right. And it's kind of where I'm at now. So it's just now I'm really, I feel like being the type of artist I want to be with, using my music as a vehicle to be able to make a real difference in communities and be able to spread messages in the way that I want to. So yeah, it's been really, really dope so far.
I got to say, that's the second thing that struck me. Again, the first thing that struck me was your professionalism and the aesthetic of what you sent me, you know, as a promo material, promo package, basically. But then the second thing that struck me is I watched I was working out and I was like, let me check this guy out. You know, it's cool.
Yeah.
I watched Fly Away while I was hitting the weights there. And I was like, wow, I really like how socially conscious you were. You know, you're saying, look, this is who I am. This is where I come from. This is a little bit about me, but this is us as a community. This is how we can, you know, let's all come together. Fly Away is just one example, because obviously you have a lot more videos, songs than that.
Yeah.
Talk about that, and, you know, talk about how you became, how you, you know, that awareness. Okay, we say woke, that level of wokeness, right?
Yeah. Man, it's just growing up, and I've always felt like I heard this so long ago, like when I was earlier on making music, was just that, you know, artists, I feel like, have a responsibility to an extent, you know, whether it's just to tell the truth about whatever, you know, however you want to express it, but you have a responsibility with things you say, and like your messages, they mean something and they're going to affect people in some sort of way. So, you know, you want to be conscious with how you're using that, and using that skill and that talent and that platform that you have, no matter how big or small it is. And just, you know, finding myself and finding out what's important to me. And I just want to be able to use it to make a difference for people. You know, I love collaboration, and I love being able to help communities, especially communities of color. Like it's just becoming, you know, I'm just becoming more and more into my purpose, and I'm just using this as a vehicle for that, you know.
That's perfect, man. That reminds me of something my wife always says. And it's interesting because you mentioned you're married, and I think a relationship, a long-term relationship, is a great way to learn self-awareness, right?
For sure.
And growth.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Something my wife always says is that words matter. And I was brought up in a household where words didn't matter. Yeah. We could just put one another down and be like, we could just, you know, rag on each other all the time. I'm the eldest of three boys, and me and my brothers were always ragging on each other. Words didn't really matter. We didn't put much weight into words. And my parents, they were self-made, independent artists, entrepreneur types. They were very similar way. My father's from Cuba. You know, he migrated to the United States from Cuba as a young man. He grew up on the street, basically. So it's interesting that you say that. You're aware, you're conscious of it, and then now you're even more conscious of it with your community. And like you said, there's two things I want to chop up here.
Okay.
Number one is, like Common, okay? Like some of my favorite rappers, Common, Mos Def, Q-Tip, that era.
That's all my like, yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
that's some of my top echelon.
Okay, good. Because
for
that's
sure.
exactly what you remind me of. You're bringing this whole socially conscious element that typical rap isn't talking about. So let's just talk about that first.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I feel like a lot of artists that would be considered conscious don't necessarily want to harp on that part of like calling it conscious, but it's just being aware, like you said, and just telling more sides to the story. I feel like, you know, and it's not necessarily always the most popular thing that's talked about all the time, because I feel like certain things that you hear all the time, it's real easy to talk about those things, but I just feel like maybe the conscious or aware artists, they might be talking. I mean, a lot of these artists like Mos Def or Common or Q-Tip, like they talk about the same stuff at times that some more, you know, just poppy artists are talking about, but I feel like they tell more sides to the story, and they may go a little bit more in depth on that, you know what I'm saying? So but like you said, just being raised on like, you know, Jay-Z or Common or Q-Tip or Lupe or, you know, even Kanye West when he first came out, like all these people show that you can talk about the things you're actually going through. You don't have to just talk about what maybe just the most popular thing or what the wave is at that time, but you can tell multiple sides of that story and bring things full circle. And that's like how life is. Like I look at it as I make music you can live to, and you can grow with, you know what I'm saying? Like that's my favorite kind of music, is the music that it's not set just for one scene or one time a day or one part of your life. Like you can literally grow with the best music that I love. You can grow with it. Like it can be dope to you now, and then 10 years later, there might be parts of that you pick up that you weren't on because you just weren't there mentally, you know, and you can actually grow with it. So that's the type of music that I strive to make and intend to make. You know, it's music you can live your life to, you know, and grow with, you know.
That's a quote that we're captioning.
That sounds like a quote, right?
I'm looking at Eric.
Please do.
Like,
send it back to me.
That's it. You make music that you can live to, that you can grow with.
That's what it's all about, because that's my favorite kind of music, you know, even outside of hip hop, you know. It's just that's the best music, is the music you can live your whole life to and appreciate, you know.
It means something different at each stage in your life.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. Each stage of your life. Hey, speaking of which, tell us some of the musical influences that you have, like you said, other than in the rap, you know, arena.
Well, my family, I grew up as a little kid, you know, I would always hear my family playing music like Earth, Wind and Fire, Heat Wave. What do you say? The OJs, yeah.
All the Motown soul era, right?
Yeah. So you know, that's in my memories as a kid, just older music. But then, you know, growing up, like as a little kid, I always remember my mother, when I was younger, like young grade school, playing 90s R&B and hip hop. So like all the like SWVs and when hip hop and R&B was really like, you know,
when it was R&B.
When it was R&B and there was hip hop, but they were coming together, like that period of time. You know what I'm talking about? Like that's a big part of influence for me too. And then, you know, just as you get older, and now with the internet, you know, you can learn about other music that you might not have necessarily grew up to, but it's just really good music. Like my wife put me on Amy Winehouse, you know, and just different things like that. So it's all across the board. So I'm at this point now where I just love good music, you know.
That's awesome.
I'm curious to know what artist that influences you, that people would be surprised to hear that influence you.
That's a good one.
That's a great question. And I was just thinking about this the other day. And you're talking about music artists that
I love atypical.
I love okay, so I love Average White Band. I love Average White Band.
I'm clapping because I'm over here, the old funketeer that I am. I'm like, play that fucking music, man.
Yeah, like I love them. And then I'd say there's other types of art that inspire me. You know, like I feel like, and this isn't necessarily newer, but like Banksy or Gordon Parks, like there's just other types of art, you know, outside of just music that I feel like are really, really dope as well. You know,
very cool.
So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so glad you say that. The reason why I'm like, wow, is because the visual arts is something that we don't typically draw a parallel to when it comes to music.
But it's always been there. Even like if you want to even talk about hip hop, it's always been there. And graffiti was an original part of hip hop. So the visual side has always been a part of hip. There's like different. These are different. We can go on tangents here, I'm sure.
Please,
but
tangent away, bro.
But I mean, but it's been like the genre, like different genres being with hip hop has been there, and then like the visual side has always been there too. Like we talk about graffiti and just artists being inspired by visual artists. I mean, Basquiat's been mentioned I don't know how many times in hip hop, you know. So it's been they go together. It's a part of it, you know. And music is also visual too. Like at least especially nowadays, everything is more visual. So, and I want to say this too. I'm impressed by two different things. So on the music side, I love the fact that an artist can make music and they can make people. You can do a tour and people will line up outside, you know, to come see you in a city. But I'm also very much inspired by visual artists that can have their art in a museum in one place, and people from all over the world will come and line up to go see that visual art somewhere. So I just feel like that's super dope to me. And I'm just, you know, I get inspired by both of those things to me. Man,
and that is such a huge icon mentioning, you know, Jean-Michel Basquiat, right? Yes. I mean, he died. He's a member of the 27 Club. You know, he died at the age 27, like Kurt Cobain and so many other greats, Jimi Hendrix, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought him up, man. What a monumental figure and Absolutely. Culture as an artist, as a visual artist, right?
Yeah.
Talking about joining these different areas of art together.
Yeah, and he was using his platform to talk about a lot of different things. Like, you know, he put Black people at the center of a lot of his work.
That's right.
And mentioning about different things and different topics. I mean, it's kind of like you can leave it up to your opinion on his pieces and stuff. But he was talking about he would be, I would feel like, considered a conscious artist, you know, too.
Extremely, you know, and the fact that he was Haitian and Puerto Rican descent, that's super cool as well.
Yeah,
you know?
It's
so funny because we were talking about this with another guest just recently. So, okay, wow. You said so many things I want to talk about. First of all, you said, and I have to, sorry, I'm dropping a little bit of a name. You know that I was the music director for Babyface, right? Do you know that?
I didn't know that.
Okay.
That's amazing.
So for 12 years, I worked with Babyface, Kenny Babyface Edmonds. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was
slight flex.
Our flex is just a little bit. Oh, come on.
Just a slight flex. Yeah. All right.
So, you know, for 12 years, I was his guitarist, but then for 10 of those 12 years, I was his guitarist and music director. And, you know, I learned so much from working with him over that, you know, decade or so. But you mentioned that convergence again of when there was R&B, there was hip hop, but then they kind of joined together. But still, I still call it classic R&B. And you said your mom was bringing you up on some '90s R&B, the real shit. You know,
yeah.
They would really sing it. You know,
Yeah. And my mother, she would play. Like I said, we had the oldies, and then they had the like you said R&B. But then she loved Biggie, you know what I'm saying? So it was all of those things. So, yeah.
Right. Because that was again, that goes with, wow. Yes. Because you had the Biggie and pop movement, right? When you had the grunge movement.
Yep.
Like a whole nother convergence, and now it's all coming. I like the fact that today.
Well, then you got because of that, you got bands like Linkin Park,
yes,
and Limp Bizkit, who were hip hop and rock at the same time.
That's what I was gonna say, where the lines are blurred.
Yeah, and and you can see certain artists that have blurred those lines. You know, even in hip hop, like you have like a Travis Scott. He's super grunge, if you want to say, to an extent. At least the live element for sure. So it's like it's kind of all in there, you know.
Right.
Well, I had seen that Chris Cornell tribute at the Forum like a couple of years ago, and Miguel came out to sing. I forget what tune he sang, but they were all singing Chris Cornell songs in tribute to him. And I had no clue that Miguel had those chops. Like, I know he's a great singer, but it's like, again, these worlds just crossing over.
So true. And your music reminds me of that. Like, again, I like the fact that you brought so many different threads and you join them together.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So again, focusing on the concept that you are an independent artist to the core. You don't have a record label sponsor, backing you up. You don't have promoters, booking you or booking agent rather. You don't have the manager. And I say yet with a capital Y, because all that will come.
Mm.
What's a day in the life like of Alfred Nomad? Let's talk about the logistics of how you split up your artistic duties and your business responsibilities.
Yeah, and that's something I realize I get complimented on a lot, is the fact that I say, and I don't think about it when you just have your head down and doing it. But because I realize that there a lot of creatives can't do both. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it all ended up out of necessity. You know what I'm saying? I mean, of course it could be a personality thing and you can be a organized person, but at the same time, it's just out of necessity. Like if I want to get covered on the Career Musician podcast, I have to reach out to them, and to reach out to them, you got to be able to present yourself right. And it's just like you said, with trial and error, and over the years, like I was, sending music out in the blog era before when blogs were like the gatekeepers kind of thing. So from then, that's where I learned to have to figure out how to pitch, yourself to people and learn kind of what the best practices of that. But anyway, to answer your question of a day in the life, it's kind of, so I have a team of people. I have a brand that I've created called Love. It's spelled LxVE, stands for Love and Value Everything and Everyone. And that's where I started curating my own events. And I have like a small group of people that I work with. And it's kind of like depending on what the main goal is at that point in time. But I'm always, checking emails, in the earlier in the day or whatever. I try to do it right now is like, I don't know how far you want me to go with this, but are you asking like just in general day or?
Yeah, tell us, man. This is your showcase, bro.
Got you. So on a good day, how I'll do it is I get up, I meditate, I try to write something. I'm making sure to record more so now. Like maybe try to record something. I'm checking emails, making sure to get back to people. I may have a list of things. I'm like a Google Doc king. Like I make Google Docs for everything, like all my ideas.
You're describing me.
Like, yeah, like I got like, media lists, like whatever. Like I keep lists of and notes for almost everything, but I write it down because I have a horrible memory. So I have to write things out, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but yeah, and now I've connected with this organization called The Rattle. They're based in the UK, but they have a branch out here in LA. So I work with them heavily now. So I have some people from that organization.
What are they called?
The Rattle, like a rattlesnake. The Rattle.
You got that?
Yeah. So if you look up The Rattle, you should see them. But yeah, they're just super dope. But I'm usually talking to a couple people from that organization once a week, and we're kind of planning out like, okay, what are you working on now? What are you trying to do? It's not a management, but it's just an organization that I work with. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, and I also have a podcast that I've started, so, but honestly, that's more like a hobby. That's like something just fun for me to be able to talk. Cause I'm indoors a lot, I'm working on stuff a lot. So I'm not just talking, but so, I'll go to I've recorded The Rattle sometimes. So I'll go there and record an episode or, have a studio session or whatever like that. And yeah, I've been organizing like this throughout this pandemic has been a very productive time for me, honestly.
So here's the key word: structure. And, like so many musician creatives, like you said, may not have the ability to think in both realms or might not be as organized. But I think we can all get there. In other words, like if you're not as good in one area, you can work on that to bring your skills up. And it goes across the board, right? So if you're not the best keyboard player, but you need to learn some keyboards, so that way you can write doper tracks, you're going to start studying some keyboard tutorials, right?
Right, exactly.
So it should be the same for organization and management and everything else. So I love the fact that you said you wake up and you start with meditation and then you're a Google Docs king. I'm the same way. You're organized. You understand how to put all these. It's structure. I think my point is to the listeners, learn from Alfred Nomad. You're a young cat out in the biz, hustling, grinding, and doing it. Learn from people like me who might, I've been here longer, doing it longer. It's the same concept. Again, what do I always say? The methods may change and vary, but the principles remain the same.
Yeah. And the thing is too, is have goals in mind, or what are you working on? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, and this, I've been guilty of this, is like being spread out, doing too many things at once. And it's not even necessarily a bad thing, because I am organized, but you can stretch yourself too thin or not really focus on getting something done. But I pride myself on executing an idea, you know, like if there's something I'm trying to make happen, and okay, what are the steps needed to take to do that, and literally breaking it down into steps, you know, and crossing those things off, you know. So it just takes some time, but it's all about finding what's the best method for you. Like I've read things, I read a lot too, but I've read, like, you know, some people will say make to-do lists and scratch stuff off and you'll feel better. I've heard other people like, to-do lists don't work. Like, don't do that, you know? So but whatever works for you. But the thing is, like you said, figure out your structure, figure out what makes sense for you. Also take care of yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like I mentioned meditating, but also exercise, like how you were in the gym. Like I exercise, you know, a few times a week. So, you know, just trying to make sure you're taking care of yourself all the way around too. But yeah, find some structure, you know, and knock stuff out and just have a plan. You know, I think that's the biggest stuff, you know.
And whether it's a virtual checklist or literal checklist, as you're knocking stuff out, like you say, man, that feeling of accomplishment is quite invigorating, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. It feels good to get through your list, or just at least, and if you don't get through your list for the day, at least you can see I did something, you know, I got something done, or at least you know what to do the next day, you know. So
yeah, so true. So I think this covers the concept of self-management really well. Segueing from there, do you have a mantra, like when things are going tough, when it's hard for you, as you mentioned during the pandemic, this has allowed a lot of creative time for you to really hunker down and get focused. Do you have a mantra or something that you go to when you feel just, you know, a little stressed out or?
Perfect segue. I see what you did there. Yes, I do have a mantra. It's everything will be all right. That's kind of how this whole album and project came about. Was I was really going through a tough time and trying to figure things out. Like when I first got to LA, the transition was tough. It was.
Tell us about that, bro, because it's tough for a lot of people.
Like I said, I was in Atlanta. I was in Georgia for like 10 years. So, I mean, I had a network out there. I was, you know, doing stuff regularly, but it ended up working out for the better in the end. But we moved out to LA. I didn't have anything where I had to be in Atlanta. You know, I could move. So we moved to LA, but I moved here, you know, with dang near nothing, you know, besides my network. You know, so I was working like 4 jobs at a period of time, you know, like doing, you know, part-time work or driving Lyft, or, you know, I have like a background from my schooling in like communications and marketing. So doing like virtual marketing for people, like just doing like whatever I could to make rent, you know, like that type of stuff. It was really tough first getting out here. And, you know, I had to sell my microphone that I had at the time when I first got out here just to,
wow.
That was a day, bro. When I had to sell my microphone.
What was it? Which mic was it?
It was a Shure mic. I forget which one it is right now. I'm horrible with like names and stuff. But yeah, it was a Shure mic. It was a good one. It was the one I recorded my first 2 solo like albums that are up that you can check out. I recorded both of those on that mic. But yeah, so I had to sell my mic, so I couldn't even record at certain, like I just had like one little mic I was making demos on. Like it was a tough time, but I ended up, I was telling myself this mantra the whole time: everything will be all right. Like it's gonna, like it'll work out. Like faith. That's something that's been instilled in me since I was a kid. Is faith. Like my mother, I give her all the props for instilling faith in me throughout my life. There was always times where we didn't know the answers, but she was just like, you know, it's gonna work out. So. And I was actually working on a separate project coming to LA, but I just wasn't in that space mentally. And I was telling myself this mantra, and my music that I was writing started to reflect that. And that's where the project kind of birthed from there. And so I started recording and creating the Everything Will Be All Right project. Yeah.
The reason why I'm smiling ear to ear while you're telling this, because I have the graphic up of Everything Will Be All Right, your album. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you know, first of all, the athletic side of me, which I'm not an athlete, I just admire athletes. I'm a wannabe athlete.
I'm an ex-athlete.
Oh, okay, well there you go. I'm thinking to myself, wait, was that a jab hook that he took to the? How did he get his face made up like that? I'm thinking to myself, oh shit, wow, I love the fact that your face is wrecked. You know, how did you come up with this concept? Talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean the album's out now, so if you haven't heard it, then spoiler alert, whatever. But there's a video actually. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but it's called Peace and Quiet. It's not on YouTube. Okay. I actually have a platform of my own called Tone that I'm now like putting all of my stuff out on. So you can go to tone.vision and you can search Alfred Nomad. You'll find. But I have a video called Peace and Quiet that I shot for the intro song on the album, and it explains the whole concept, but it's basically about showing the pain that we all feel on the inside, on the outside. And so that's where that concept is. And I've always had this, I don't know where I had all these ideas, like I said, notes, and I had a doodle that I made. I just had this idea of having that beat up face with the words, everything will be all right. And I'm smiling, but it don't look like everything will be all right. It's just, that's how I feel like we all feel a lot of the time. Is like we'll smile like everything is good, but on the inside we feel horrible, and we feel like how I look on that cover, you know.
Like
but still having that mantra
on that cover.
Yeah, exactly. But having that mantra on top, you know, over it is just saying that everything will be all right. And it makes you have to dig deeper into the story of like, what does this mean? I got to listen to this and figure it out. But that's what it is. It's like showing the pain that we tend to hide, you know, on the outside. Yeah,
man. Love your aesthetic, by the way, on all your album covers.
That's what I'm saying.
Website, it's just like
on point.
You seem like you have a real clear, bird's eye view vision of what your brand is.
Yeah, it's like you're your own manager from afar. Because the reason why we're so enamored by it is because as artists, it's really difficult to zoom in and hone in on your brand identity. I think a lot of us as artists can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
But you have that handled.
Yeah, it's just like I always say, it comes with time. You know, when my very first raps I was writing and freestyling at school, I was stealing lines from other rappers, you know, back in the day. So, I mean, when you first start, you kind of do what you mimic, and then you kind of find your voice, or it just all comes with time and just continuing to do it and asking yourself questions, and you know, also just being self-aware, you know. And now I've become very clear. I feel like this year, especially, like I'm very clear on, you know, myself and my purpose with this and the direction I want to go. Like I feel like this year I really showed the type of artist that I intend to be moving forward, and the way I want to go about it and how I want to use it and all of that. So, but that is with years of time, you know,
right?
And just doing.
And that's what people don't see. They don't see the behind the scenes, all the years of development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And not getting discouraged, you know, and because I'll be the first to say, like, I'm not a popping artist, you know, yet, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't have the most views and streams. And I hear this all the time and I think this is good for like the audience that you have for this podcast too. It's like, I hear all the time. I literally had a DM yesterday from a guy I never knew who lives in Canada and was like, yo, I love your music. I don't know why you don't have more views, but I dug into your stuff and I love it. Like you have a fan in me. And I was just like, you know, I appreciate it. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? But you know, the views isn't even what I'm doing it for, but you know, the impact is more important. But you know, I don't know either. Cause I've heard that even from people I'm starting to work with. They're like, I don't know why you don't have more, but it's great, you know. And I just believe in it, you know. So what's going on? This is Alfred Nomad, and you're checking in with the Career Musician Podcast with my guy Nomad.
Being a career musician is more than just gigs and sessions. Are you a career musician? Find out on the Career Musician Podcast, streaming everywhere.
Making music is easy. Making money in music is not. Join Nomad as he talks about the ups, downs, and turnarounds of the music biz.
Eric G and I talk about this all the time. I ascribe to many of the marketing philosophies and self-help gurus, as you mentioned earlier. And a lot of times you get conflicting information from everybody. But one of the people that I love to check out is Seth Godin. He always talks about,
yep.
he always talks about the marketing strategies and whatnot. And, he always says, like, he draws attention to, you either have to be first in the game or the best. And I struggle with that. I struggle with that comment from Seth, even though I look up to him, because I could look at you and say, well, he's the best rapper in my opinion, because I think you're a dope rapper. I love your style and your skills. But the next person might disagree with that. Right?
That sounds limiting. That sounds very limiting.
You know what I'm saying? Right.
That sounds extremely limiting to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then clearly you weren't the first. Right. But I still believe that you can make it. So again, that's why I mentioned Seth, and I mentioned that I look up to his musings, right?
Yeah, for sure.
However, I don't always agree. And I think that's the thing. Like you just said it. You have to be willing to take everything in, process it, and then do it how you think it needs to be done. But know that it's going to take time.
Right. Exactly. And yeah, that does sound limiting to be whether you're the first or the best, which could be the case. But I could think of even phones as like, you could say, what's the best, this is the best phone. Like there's plenty of phones that weren't the first phone and not the best phone, but people still buying them, and also, and this is, I'm going to sound crazy, especially as a hip hop artist, because you hear this all the time, but I'm not doing this to be the best rapper. I feel like that's to me, and this is me, is I feel like that's limiting, or it could drive you crazy to strive to be the best rapper. Because name the rapper that everybody says is the best.
All right, Tupac.
I don't even know. If you ask
Tupac, Biggie, yeah.
If you ask 10 people, none of them are going to say the same person. You're not going to get 10 people to say the same artist is the best rapper.
That's
so what am I chasing?
It's silly.
Or you have people that'll say like the year Kendrick got snubbed by Macklemore. Oh, everybody was like, he's not the best, but he didn't win. So it's like, what are we chasing? Yeah, what are you chasing by you trying to be the best? Because it's subjective. And that's me. That's what I've come to. And I want to be my best. I want to be the best artist I can be. You know what I'm saying? I want to be the best Alfred Nomad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm going to better myself every time. And I pride myself on that. Like I always, one of the best compliments I get when I drop something new is like, I hear the growth, or I see what you're doing. Like, I can hear that it sounds better this time than the last time. That's the best compliment I can get. But trying to be the best rapper, like I'll be chasing that my whole life. And you can even reach Lil Wayne status where everybody you can have the title of best rapper alive or whatever. But still, if he went down the street, there's still gonna be somebody who says you're not. So I'm not chasing that. You know what I'm saying? But that's me. And I could sound crazy, and that's very not non-hip hop of me to say that. But
no, I don't think it sounds crazy. I think it sounds human. I think it sounds real.
Which is very
that's the core of what hip hop was built on, although it seems to have drifted away from that. If you look,
let me be clear though. I'm gonna beat your ass in a cipher though. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna come in there. I'm still competitive. Like I came from sports. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going in to not be the best artist tonight. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. So I will say that too. But I'm not doing it to be the best. Like for if everybody online isn't saying I have the best album of the year, I'm gonna kill myself. Like I'm not.
Right.
I'm not chasing that, you know what I'm saying? But yes, I still have a competitive spirit and still am going to bring my best, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, that's not going to make or break how I feel about myself. You know what I'm saying?
Amen. And listeners, I hope you're taking this in, because we all need to take that to heart and understand that, comparison, I love my wife because she always brings these little parables to mind. Comparison is the thief of all joy. Soon as you start comparing yourself to somebody, now all of a sudden you're depressed. Oh, I'm not like this. Yeah, but you are like you,
Yeah, exactly.
Back in the day, we used to call it cutting heads. You go on stage as musicians, you cut heads,
chop up, I say this too, like, because I love performing with bands, and I love watching the dynamic with musicians, because like you said, they can be competitive, or they can be like comedians, like they're competitive, or they'll, whatever, but there's still a camaraderie there. Like you can want to be the best bass player there that night, you know what I'm saying? But there's still a camaraderie there, and you still feel like you can learn from one another or whatever, but it's still competitive. So I rock with that, And that's kind of that's my approach when it comes to this too.
I love it. There's a famous jazz fusion funk bass player named Jaco Pastorius. Do you know that name?
The name sounds familiar, but I can't pinpoint.
Real popular in the 70s and 80s. He died a young death as well. He was he was a peculiar individual. But they interviewed him and they said, Jaco, how does it feel to be the best bass player in the world? And he said, I don't know. Get me a fucking gig and then I'll tell you.
Wow. I love
He was like unemployed. He's like, yo, I have no idea because I don't think I am because nobody's hiring me. And I'm taking that to try to align it with what you heard from the gentleman who called you from Canada or hit you up or whatever. It's the same precept. You know, look, I go through it too. We all go through it, I think. And sometimes it just doesn't happen as quick as we want it to.
Yeah. Or how many artists do we know that, especially in the visual art world, but how many artists do we know that didn't get to just do when they were alive? You know, like, or, you know, we hear about this was the best music of its time, but they died broke and unhappy, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that's my point. Exactly.
That's morbid, I know, but but still, it's just to the point of it, you know.
And everything at the end of the day, everything will be all right. I love that. I love that.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, everything will be all right, especially if you believe in yourself. Yeah.
Add that tagline. That's your quote right there. I like it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'm going to touch this back to the socially conscious concept of what you're doing and your platform and what we've experienced this year with the whole Black Lives Matter movement. You know, man, what an historical time to live through, first of all, right?
Yeah, right.
I feel like, you know, it's the 60s social equity all over again, right? It's just we're reliving it all. Talk about that and how you feel about that. And, you know, it just seems like you're the perfect combination of artists to reach many different factions of ears who might not otherwise hear the message, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
When it comes to, so with the Black Lives Matter movement and organization and all that they're fighting for, this stuff has been going on. This became a monumental year of polarizing it in a way, and in a time where everybody had to sit down and couldn't just be busy and move on to the next thing the next day. So this was just a combination of a bunch of things, bringing it to the light. But this has been going on, you know, and even a song that I didn't even re-release it. I just posted about it again around earlier this year. But my song "Calm Down," I made that over 3 years ago, you know, and it was talking about police brutality and murders of Black people and people of color by the police, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, this message." But I was like, I wrote, and it became, and I even said a line about put a gun to your face with a knee on your neck, and I said that 3 years ago, and then you know what happened with George Floyd, and it's just full surface stuff, and it was just like, you know, it's been going on, but I feel like I'm appreciative of now that people are listening a little more and are like, oh wow, this really is wrong. And I didn't know. I don't know how you don't know, but you know, everybody's got a thing, you know what I'm saying? But but yes, it is important for me to use my platform as well. And it's just how I'm feeling. Like I dropped a song called Justice this year, which was basically a part 2 for Calm Down, talking about, you know, we want justice now. Like we're not, and people were talking about the riots and people are mad. I feel like I'm going along, but I hate the fact that, you know, when it became news, like when people started rioting or the looters or whatever, and that became the news and that became the issue.
Focus. Yeah.
It's like, let's talk about why this even happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and it was kind of talking about that. It's like, you want to get mad about people rioting or the looting or whatever. People, you know, you push somebody long enough, they're going to react in a certain way. And a lot of these protests they were peaceful protests anyway. So that wasn't even like the main thing for any of these things. But just talking about, we want justice now. Like we don't want, you know, and it was a time where we saw all these companies posting somebody Black finally, or posting a Black square and trying to say that they're, you know, they support the Black Lives Matter movement for a month, you know, and all of that. But it's like, that's great. You can paint the streets to say Black Lives Matter and all that, but we want justice for the people that have been wronged, and we don't want this stuff to happen anymore. So that's what we want, actually, you know, at the end of the day.
Right. We don't want just hollow actions out on the street. We want the real justice in the courtrooms.
Right. And that's the whole point of all of this. It's like, we're not kneeling because it's like, hey, I want you to say I matter. It's like, no, I want you to treat me like we matter, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Do the right thing unconditionally. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I don't need the extra stuff, you know, or the like the pacifier stuff, or just to make the look, you know, like we just want to be treated equally and fairly and justly. And, you know, we just want true equality in situations, you know.
Is there an ingredient that you feel that is missing from American culture that perhaps if it were added, it could help bring a quicker remedy to the situation?
The main thing I would say to be added, and it's not necessarily it's just, one is education. I feel like people need to be educated on how this stuff really works. And like, even with people became more aware of it, and that was something I also was using my platform for this year with voting, and realizing the importance of not only like the presidential votes but the local voting and how that stuff works. Like, there's a lot we're not taught, you know. And I feel like when people are educated and can make educated decisions about things, that one makes some sort of change. So I would add that. But also, I just feel like the system, and I said this in the song Justice too, is like, the system ain't broke. If it was, we could fix it in a day. The sad reality is it was built to be this way. I feel like it's not about adding, it's about completely changing. Like, we just got to completely change the system. We're living in a society where that systems were set up when in slavery, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of it was set up in the same time, and it still stems today, you know. And I'm not blaming I'm not going to blame every single thing on slavery, but the systems are old, and it's like it's not, you know, like and I could be misquoting. I don't want to say too much. I'm not going to say something I don't know enough about, so I'm not own to that. But it's just, I feel like stuff is set up not to help to be equal across the board. And I think things just need to be taken out or completely changed altogether rather than adding a component is the point.
Amended, you know, that's why we have the amendments, so that you
exactly.
readdress issues that in these modern times are different from when it was back then. But you're right, it was structured like that, which brings to mind, have you heard of the documentary 13th that's on Netflix now?
Yes, absolutely.
Bro, I just became hip to that. I'm like, holy shit, this is some eye-opening stuff.
Yes, absolutely. There's let me hold on. I want to tell you the right thing. I'm going to look it up real quick. But please check out the 13th, or if you haven't checked that out. And then also there's a podcast. Hold on, I want to just make sure I tell you the right thing. 1619 by the New York Times. And if you look up 1619, that literally breaks down everything of why it breaks down how society is, how just about everything is based around slavery or is because of slavery. Like, so if you look up 1619, and I think, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there's something called the 1619 Project that they were planning to put in schools, and Trump wanted to ban that from being in curriculums. Right. And we all know, you know, and it's like, wow, it's because, so if you check out 1619, it's a podcast on Spotify, it breaks it down, but also you can research the 1619 Project. 1619 was the year that the very first slave boat arrived at the Americas. On American shores. And how from that moment, everything changed, and how literally every aspect of society can be traced back to that, and how it's been affected and how it's set up today. So that can explain that too. So if you watch 13, you can see how the prison industrial complex and how that's set up, and then 1619 will break down, like, really. So for all the people that are like, can y'all stop talking about slavery? Like, it was so long ago. But to bring it back, yes, and that is why I created this Everything Will Be Alright project and initiative to help people of color and to help Black creatives to help with their mental health and bring not only awareness but real resources, you know what I'm saying, to that community. Yeah.
I love it. Real resources. Perfect. Okay, so you have, like we already covered, You have a great platform you developed. It's taken years. You've developed yourself. As we know, artists and repertoire used to A&R, used to develop artists. But nowadays in the new industry, the DIY industry, we have to do it ourselves. And you've done a great job. Kudos. And you're using your platform to bring awareness. What do you see on the horizon for yourself, Alfred Nomad as the artist? Any projects that you can discuss a little bit without giving it away? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you can expect more music. I may be dropping a couple things before the year is out, a couple tracks, one or two before the year is out. So so I'm looking forward to that. I also have a merch collection and the vinyl for Everything Will Be All Right that I plan to release top of it, like early next year. And I'm working on a new project and might have some new situations on the horizon to be able to elevate stuff and take it to another level. So I'm looking forward to be able to talk more about that in the future. But yeah, you can just expect more music and more aspects of Everything Will Be All Right. And we just had our first round with offering. I didn't really break this down about the therapy sessions, but we can talk about that as well. But more than likely there'll be another round of offering therapy sessions for people to apply for through the Everything Will Be Right initiative. So,
okay, so break down the links for all of this. Where can we go to find out all of this information?
Got you. Yeah, so you can follow me at Alfred Nomad, ALFREDNOMAD. alfrednomad.com. If you go on to my, let's say my Instagram, if you go to my bio, you'll be able to see all the links and you'll see where you can donate for the Everything Will Be All Right project. But if you go to alfrednomad.com, you'll be able to find it as well, where you can donate. But it's a GoFundMe. You can actually donate to offer where we're raising funds to provide free therapy sessions for Black creatives. And you can see all the information and listen to the album, and watch the visuals and everything around that too. So it's a whole experience.
I love that, man. Yeah. Alfred Nomad, you have dropped so much knowledge on this discussion. We are grateful for that. And we're fans, man. Like I said, I became an instant fan. As soon as I got your email and clicked on the links, I was like, oh, this kid is dope. And please don't, I call you a kid because I'm probably a lot older than you.
I'll take it, man. Yeah.
This guy is dope. I love your shit, man. I love your stuff. It's amazing. And I love
you. Collaborate on all of us. Yeah.
Okay, so you just took the words out of my mouth. I have an idea for a collaboration.
Okay.
I'm not going to share it here because I don't want anybody stealing our
Got you. Smart man. You've been around the block. You know how this works.
But I want to talk to you about it right after. Okay, but before we close, look, again, you've dropped a lot of wisdom. Any words of advice for a young, aspiring musician, indie artist who wants to do what you've done? Maybe they're living elsewhere and they have their sights set on LA or whatever. What would you tell this person?
To work at your craft, learn as much as you can, not only about your craft, but about how the business of that works. Keep ownership of what you're doing at all costs, as much as possible.
Yes.
Find some people that know more than you do. You know what I'm saying? And I'm steal a quote that I heard recently was, learn the rules like a professional, but then break them like an artist. So it's like, don't limit yourself with what you want to do. Like your ideas aren't crazy, and just don't give up. Like don't get discouraged and don't get caught up in all the hype or how many people are liking or commenting on your stuff. Like just do it and make sure it means something that is important to you, and just keep learning and progressing. And eventually you'll get on the Nomad, musician podcast and a career musician show, and you can keep growing from there,
That's right. I love it. You said something about own your works. Something I like to talk about all the time, IP, intellectual property. Mm-hmm. That's so important, right?
Yeah, man. We've seen way too many times of these artists that reach the top tier mountain and don't own nothing and don't have nothing to show for it, at the end of the day. And they're fighting later on, trying to get their stuff back. So try to keep that as much as you possibly can, because that'll help you and the people you care about in the long run, so. Yeah.
We're going to have to stop because everything you say gives me something else to shine the light on. You also said, don't just get discouraged by the numbers. Don't get discouraged by the lack of numbers or whatever. And boy, that's the truth too. It's like, you can't sit there and watch the feeds because if you do, it's only a disservice to yourself.
Absolutely. Do it because it matters, you know, and it matters to you, and it matters to somebody. So do it because it matters and because you love it, and just do it to the best of your ability and learn, you know what I'm saying? And just keep doing that, and it'll reach where it's supposed to go, you know, but just keep learning, you know, and get people around you that can get it to another level. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just do the work.
Cultivate that team.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Man, you're on point. I love it.
Thank you.
Killing. Before we wrap, can we do some rapid fire?
Let's do it.
All right. We're going to put you on a timer, though, so we're going to have to go fast.
Oh, man.
You have 1 minute to answer as many questions as you can. I'll tell you when the 10-second mark hits, and I'll count down from 5.
Okay.
Now, and I got a stack of cue cards full of questions right here. Look at this. All right.
I'm wondering how many people have gotten through these, but I'm going to try and be competitive on this and see what.
All right. Good. And I'm going to try to deliver it as fast as possible.
All right.
Eric G, count us in, bro.
And 3, 2, 1.
Which is your favorite social media account?
Instagram.
Favorite decade of music?
Mine. No, I'll say that 90s. I'll say 90s.
Song or band that changed your life?
The Roots.
Electric or acoustic?
Acoustic.
What would you
electric?
do?
Yeah, electric. Sorry.
What would you do if you weren't a career musician?
I'd probably be a tattoo artist.
Guilty pleasure food?
Wings.
Introvert, extrovert?
I'm an introverted extrovert.
Second time we got that today. Dream collab, dead or alive?
Dilla.
Shopping online or in store?
Online.
Hidden talent?
Ooh.
10.
I can bend my thumb like this.
But that's scary. Artists in your playlist currently?
3.
Khruangbin.
1.
All right. Quentin, that's right. I love them. They're like, where are they from?
They are I think from Texas.
From Texas. But that name is like a Polish derivative of an aircraft.
I think is it Polish or South American something? I forget. Yes. It's from their band name is from another language. Yeah.
That's right. One of our team members here, Charlie Weinman, his favorite band is that same band. Yeah.
They're dope, man. I feel like I keep mentioning them, but that's just what came to my mind first.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Bro, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Man, appreciate it. This was an amazing conversation. So I appreciate this. This was dope.